are some things I want to mention. And what I want to focus on this time is people who support people in recovery. This is a big topic in two regards. One is if a person isn't suffering from recovery themselves, it is very difficult to understand why people do what they do when they are addicts. It feels very personal, and it feels very disregarding and selfish. And we don't realize that it is a survival mechanism of the brain that is nearly impossible to control, and when controlled causes excruciating pain. So understanding this, and yet understanding that we then don't have to accept it and tolerate it and decide that it should stay that way, is something that's not always available. So it's really kind of been this pushback against addiction, or this kind of buckling under for people who are in relationships with people in dependency. And I do a class on my other site, and it is about relationships. Codependency is being dependent or addicted to a relationship with a person who has dependency or debilitating illness. So what's happening in it is all of the suffering of the addict becomes the suffering of the people in their life. There used to be a saying in AA when I was young that I remember that they'd say in Al-Anon, which is because I started, even though I started going to AA as an adult when I was a child, I went to Alateen. I went to all of these because my dad is an alcoholic. And I remember this saying that says, the alcoholic gets the alcohol and the family gets the ism. And while that's not entirely true, the alcoholic has the ism, trust me. But the family feels it too. So family and friends suffer with the addict until eventually maybe all the bridges are burned and it's gone. Back over to this other, not that one. I'm going to switch over to this one, and I'm going to go to this program here. Again, under Your Way Recovery Program, there is a family, friend, and community support group. Now, in this group, I want to talk about this for a minute because there's two ways that it's important to help family. One is to help them understand addiction, and that it's not that the person, the addict in their life, doesn't care. It's not that it's just an illness and we have to tolerate it. I think it's that understanding that it's a misunderstanding of the brain that needs to be corrected. And so understanding that does two things. The first thing it does is it helps the person supporting the person in recovery do the right things. Now, this is huge because most of what we learn is how to not be enabling and how not to enable them being in addiction. But the focus is all on, I need to have boundaries and I need to have enough self-love to give myself some priority, to have some self-nurturing or compassion for myself. So there's all this that is really about the issue of codependency, but it's better if a person understands what's causing it at a brain level and knows how to respond. So as an example, if instead of worrying about boundaries, instead of worrying about not enabling, I had an interesting comment for somebody that attended one of my retreats. They were just there for a day, but afterwards I ran into them not much later, and they said, it's really interesting. I'm in this relationship and my significant other is really volatile. They blow up and freak out, and I used to sometimes I just either walk away or I blow up in response. But after I took your course, I realized that the only reason why they're blowing up is because they're afraid. Like at some level, maybe they're not consciously afraid, but some triggered fear. And so all I need to do is tell them they're safe, and they calm right down. It's been amazing. It's completely transformed my relationship. And this is what I'm talking about, that when we can make a step like that, where we can understand where the person is coming from, and then respond in a way that helps break them out of the pattern, rather than possibly driving them further into it, right? Because conflict is only going to increase the stress. And then we start to blame ourselves, hold ourselves responsible for their continuing patterns. Also, the other thing about most recovery is the fact that it's very shaming and it's disempowering. I felt continually disempowered while I was in my healing. And I know it wasn't intentional, but I felt like I was being told, you're broken, you can't do it yourself, you need this to be whole, you need this drug or this program or my guidance, going into therapy, and that I was not capable. And I think empowering people is the most important thing. If we're going to drive healthy dopamine in the brain, the person needs to feel empowered and successful, not shamed. And some recovery programs do work off a shame base. It says, I will stand up and repeat all the horrible things I've done to shame myself enough to not do it again. And I think moral inventory is important, but it becomes inherent when we're in the right brain function. When we have a brain, so every single dysfunctional thing we do to feel safe. So we're in these two mechanisms of the brain, fight or flight or rest and digest. And so when we're in fight or flight, all of our dysfunction, every horrible thing that you or anyone you know has ever done, they've done because some part of their brain was afraid and thought doing that thing would make them feel safe. Even if you think of a person killing another person, that's what's happening. And because we don't feel fear as fear all the time. The fear response in the brain can be felt as anger or sadness or discomfort, anything that is a negative emotion. So if we can understand that, then we can start removing the concept of shame from addiction. And in this is the other piece of this support act. There is generally in addictive relationships, there is a lot of pain. And even when addicts are trying to come out of addiction, they tend not to be trusted because they've tried and failed before, or they've done damage. They've hurt people and they want to do better now, but they've at this point been shunned. And so this helps with the forgiveness process in the fact that I use the word forgiveness, and I don't think forgiveness means letting things go. I look at the word forgive as give first, and give first, not give, not gift, but to bend, give, have some bend. And I think it's about allowing the mind to shift out of a confirmation bias, because of course, that's that saying from Buddha that says holding on to anger is like drinking poison and waiting for someone else to die. It's making us miserable and them. But the pain was done, and we are feeling that pain. So it helps the person, the family, heal. It helps them realize, oh, okay, first of all, this wasn't intentional. It was the function of a brain that was in a survival pattern. Second of all, I don't need to hold on to the pain. I don't need to have it be about them. And that's where the big difference happens, is when I can make my recovery as a person in a relationship with someone in recovery, realizing that I have recovering to do from pain, from trauma, from financial distress, from betrayal, from all the things that happen in addictive relationships. And I get to not make that about the addict. I get to make that about me, and I get to process through shrinking my own amygdala, this amygdala that's been harassed by the situation. And so I can focus. So all of a sudden we're taking the focus for both parties off the addiction and onto our own process, but we're not processing the pain. We don't have to talk about the past. We don't even have to look at it. If we change the brain function, then we move beyond it instantly. So now, brain function doesn't necessarily change instantly. So I don't want to talk about this like it's an instant process. It's very fast. I cured the complex PTSD in 9 months. I have a client who did it in 2 years, and this is like completely cured. I don't ever have panic attacks. I have nothing near panic attacks anymore, and I don't even have anxiety. My brain doesn't react that way anymore because that amygdala is so small now. And that was the only difference, is the amygdala was big then, so I had big reactions, and it's small now, so I have small reactions. So it's about letting the participants on both sides. So it's not just the person in recovery that's getting the advantage of improving their brain function, but the family, friends, anybody in their community as well. And in this way, the relationship can end up having less pain organically, because each individual person has less pain, the relationship has less pain. Now, this is not about reconciling. This is not about letting an addict back in your life if you've decided not to. It's not about that. It's about being able to live free of the pain, the suffering, the regret, the betrayal, all of those emotional components that go with addiction. And so within this, we are going to have the same, where we're going to have the daily journal, and it's going to work the same. So in that daily journal, the first thing you're going to have is, I'm going to just go back, make sure this is showing up the way I want it to. Yes. Okay, great. I can't really see my screen, so I'll look at comments while I'm there too. I'm not seeing any comments. So we'll have our daily journal with the instructions, and then our journal entries will be the same. The computer enters the date for you, and this is finish practice to have it stored. If you want to save the information, you need to be logged in to do this. Now, this program is different than the recovery program in the fact that I haven't divided doing it anonymously, but you can do it anonymously. It will not save your information if you decide to join anonymously. It will just prefer to use written, or however you want to go forward with it. The group support also has similar topics. Now, what I want to look at here is this. This session, the Google Meet, we do one in this group as well. I just want to check this out. My camera's a little off because I was sitting on my feet before and I was falling asleep. So this is a separate group. It meets on Sunday evenings at 6:30. And what happens is this is just for people that are in relationships with addicts, or professionals that want to learn more, or if you want to understand more about addiction, you can get involved. But this is about letting it be your process. So this isn't a group environment between the addict and the family and friends of the addict. This is just about your own process and your own program, and the language is just different. So I've separated it. So you have a 6:30 group, which is then after the group, there is a meditation available. Meditation becomes really important in this because of value base. I mentioned that I have a Breaking Free of Codependency class. I will be using pieces from that class in this group. So that class is available on my other site, but the information is available here for free. And I'll bring in pieces of that talk about what codependency is and about how to put the focus back on our own expansion and how that doesn't mean choosing. One of the tagline for that class is, this is not about separating yourself from the codependent relationship. It's about realizing you're more connected than you may be recognizing. And so it's about bringing your focus and attention back to yourself. So this has the location of the meeting. You can go. It's on Google Meet. You also have a link to the meditation videos. Both the YouTube playlist has a long list of meditations. I've been doing meditations for some time, so there are a bunch already on there. But the meditation videos starting on July 1st will be kept in this meditation video link. I'm hoping this takes me to the right link. It did. Good. I set that up right. So it'll take you to this link, and like the other program, they'll just stack up. You'll just start seeing video after video. And you can choose the different meditations for different focuses. There will also be a section the same as in the other group that says find a support group. So we'll be building a community support page again, options that are free to the public for people who are in relationship, whether it's groups or free classes or things to build esteem. It can be all sorts of stuff. There will also be group forums. Now, for today, the group forum that I have is the same. This group forum is shared across the board with everyone. That will not always be the case. There will be group forums that are specifically for people who support people in recovery, and then forums for people in recovery, because there are two different conversations. So for now, we're all sharing, and I'd love to get feedback. I'd love to see people leaving comments on this, just little notes about what they're seeing in this program, what's important to them about it, why it's important. And then we have the same as we do in the other group. There is a lesson format. And within that lesson format, you have a video. And then beneath the video, or to the left of the screen, I'm hoping you can see it. I noticed it was cut off in the other one, but I've changed the format a little bit. So hopefully you see this well. You have the lesson content. Then you have a topic. You might have a topic. There may or may not be a topic. If so, there will be information here. You can mark it. Let's see, the practice in here. I just want to show you something. So let's look at the journal entry for a minute. If you were to do this, oh, it's not going to show up in there. It's going to show up in the topics. Let me do it here. So, for example, if you're in resources and you happen to say, let's say the live Google Meet. Now, this Google Meet is going to happen every week. If you mark that complete, you're going to get this little green check mark next to that class right there. And then it's going to kick you to the next one. You can still go back and look at this. Pardon me. So if you want to mark them complete, that's fine. They're still going to be available. It's not going to mean that you can't access it anymore. So that is this family group. Now, as we are willing to have a conversation with me, I would appreciate that. But I want to expand this recovery. I can also expand this to physical recovery. I won't be doing that yet. I'm going to stick to this being about drug and alcohol and suicide prevention and treatment, and focusing on those things. But what will happen is I've been able to put together what I've put together so far. And I feel good about this. I feel very focused and clear and centered in what I've done thus far. And I am excited to offer what I'm offering, but I do want to offer more. I can't if I don't have the support. So you'll just so that you know, if you have any of these programs you'd like to see implemented, and you'd like me to put a certain focus in a certain direction, with some help, I'm always happy to do it, but with some help, I'll be able to do that. Right now, I'm limited in my funds, so I can only do so much with the amount I have. So as more funds come in, if you know anybody that does charitable giving or anybody that wants to support a program like this or possibly implement it. I do have licensing agreements with some places. For Your Way, I'm going to keep everything non-profit, but I can do licensing agreements with for-profit companies. I have written programs for rehab facilities before. Forward, my ability to advance and do more will depend on that. So if you're seeing that what's on there is what's on there, the Wednesday nights, the Sundays, and you're not seeing more added, it's mostly just because I don't have the resources yet to do it. But I am working on it. I am fundraising as much as I possibly can. I am reaching out and trying to get people involved and trying to raise money so that I can do these additional things. And so you'll see those as I'm able to add them. But I promise I am committed to adding them. I am committed to this program. So right now, what it'll be is set up where we have the 2 days a week, 1 day on Wednesday night for people recovering from addiction. We'll have that group, and on Sunday, a family support group. And as we expand,